This happened about a year ago. Our living furniture is configured in an L shape. The dog was laying on the short leg of the L, my husband was sitting in the inner corner of the L, and I was sitting at the other end. The TV was on. We were watching a movie when suddenly a bright blue light flashed in our living room right in front of my husband. It was about a foot off the floor, about 3 feet tall and very bright like a lightsaber turning on and off. That was it. Just a long, tall flash of brilliant blue light that hovered above the floor and then was gone as fast as it appeared. I saw it. The dog saw it because his eyes got big as saucers and he looked at me for confirmation, almost like asking, "Did you just see that?" My husband? Nada. Not even a blink out of the man. He didn't see it even though it happened right in front of him. It would have obstructed his view of the television if he had seen it. The dog and I look at each other, then at the spot where the light appeared, then at my clueless husband, then back at each other. I asked my husband if he didn't see the blue light. He says, "What blue light?" I describe it and mention that even the dog saw it and reacted. How did he not see it? He didn't believe me, so I called the dog over. The dog would not come to me. I'm his person, and he was refusing to leave his spot on the end of the sofa to come to me. So my husband knew the dog was scared of something, but still had no idea what blue light I was talking about. I still don't know what that blue light was, and I doubt I ever will.
So 2 weeks ago, Thursday, I went to bed as usual. I was going to visit my girlfriend the following day. Due to her nature of her work, we only see each other on weekends, and I decided to get into bed early and get some rest before the long drive the next day. I remember waking up and seeing this man standing over my bed wearing black clothing just staring at me. I've had this vision before the night my aunt died. The first time, however, I saw him in my dream and he was standing at the end of the hallway. I remember screaming in my sleep and my brother running into my room to comforting me. I was 15 at the time. This time, though, 10 years later, he was standing on the right side of my bed staring at me. I looked at him in the corner of my eye, and I remember feeling annoyed, kinda like not this shit again. I closed my eyes and went back to sleep. I woke up maybe an hour later feeling a bit paranoid, but ultimately brushed it off and decided to jump in the shower and get ready for the drive. After I showed, I went into my parents' room to say goodbye to my dad and let him know that I was on my way to pick up my girlfriend. I opened the room door and I heard my dad praying. I thought that's kinda weird, but I hugged him and went on my way. The drive itself was long. It takes about 2 hours to get to my girlfriend from where I live, and what made it worse was the fact that it was pouring rain. As I got closer to my destination, I texted my girlfriend, notifying her that I'll be there in approximately 30 minutes. That was the last text I sent her before it crashed my car, totaling it in the process. The crash itself was pretty brutal. I remember driving in the fast lane. Visibility was low, and I see this car standing in the fast lane. I stopped my vehicle, turned on my hazards, and looked in the rear-view mirror. I saw a white pickup truck approaching me, and I instinctively knew that he wasn't going to stop in time. I turned left, but it was too late. I felt him hit the rear, and my car lifted off the ground, spinning to the left and landing in a ditch. I'm lucky to have only sustained a concussion. Dazed out of my mind, I kinda stumbled out of the car and assessed the situation. I called my dad, informing him as to what has happened. Now the weird part about this is, a week prior, I had this urge to go to church with my mother. I haven't been to church in almost 8 years. My dad told me that the morning of my crash, he too had a dream. In his dream, he said that his grandmother complained of having severe pain, and that he should pray for her pain to go away. I've always been a skeptic, but I think I believe now. I haven't been mentally the best since the accident. I've been sleeping with my room light on ever since the accident.
I saw my deceased ex-husband in my kitchen. I was watching TV in my living room in the middle of the day and kept hearing this sound like someone was jiggling their change around. And it was loud, as if it were in the room with me. I paused my TV, yet the sound persisted. So I started to look around the room, and when I got to the kitchen, I saw him standing there. He was looking around as if taking stock of my apartment. Oh, and he was jiggling change in one hand, while flipping a quarter in between his fingers with the other hand, something he did a lot when he was alive. He turned his head and saw me frozen, staring at him. The expression on his face was new I would never forget. His eyes got huge, and he kind of tilted his head forward with the expression like, "You can see me?" I don't know how long we stared at each for, but I turned away when I started to hear my cat ripping up the carpet again in the other room. When I turned back to my ex, he was gone. It's worth noting that he had only been dead for a couple months too. Some Romanian women I worked with told me that the dead stick around for 3 months before crossing over. I don't know about all that, but I know without a shadow of a doubt what I saw that day.
When I was between the ages of 4 and 6, I used to see a little blonde boy through this mirrored armoire in my parents' bedroom. The armoire was big and wooden, but had mirrored accents and mirrors running all the way around the base. If I laid on the carpet in front of it and looked into the mirrors on the bottom, sometimes I'd see a little blonde boy in a red sweater in the corner of the room, far away and a little distorted but still very clear. He would sit with his back to me, looking out the windows to the backyard. I don't remember ever seeing his face. I don't think I saw him many times, but I do remember his image very clearly. In my little kid mind, I thought I invented this super neat mirror trick by myself, so I tried to get my parents to see it too. They always refused, and my mom especially would get super mad at me for asking. I stopped seeing the boy when I stopped playing in their bedroom as much, and knew mirrors shouldn't work like that. When I got older, I chalked it up to my overactive kid brain. Didn't think much of it, TBH. Years and years later, when I was an adult and long after my parents had sold that house, my mom asked me about the armoire out of the blue, then told me that she used to see the little boy too. Not in the mirrors, but sometimes just out the corners of her eyes, like she'd be cooking and catch a glimpse of blonde hair pass by her hips at a kid's height, and occasionally in dreams. It didn't happen too often, but just enough to deeply freak them out. So when I mentioned seeing the same little boy, my mom was just terrified herself. There were other strange stuff in that house, but this was 100% the most vivid I remember.
I worked for an online retailer warehouse for a few months. There were 2 depressing windows that obviously were the bare minimum required for zoning that I probably walked by 1,000 times a day. Outside, you'd see a concrete retaining wall and some trucks. Obviously, after a while, I'd barely see out of my peripherals. Wall, trucks, trucks, wall. Until one day I saw trucks, and then in the second window, pigs. It was only a second, but I definitely saw a bunch of massive pigs in fenced-in areas, with the rolling hills beyond. Pigs hilled, then looked back and gone. Apparently, the land used to be a farm. Never found out if it was a pig farm. I like to think it's a flash of the past and not the ghosts of bacon.
In 2018, my grandpa was in the hospital due to being in a very bad diabetic state. No one wanted to say it, but he was close to the end of his life. My sister and a few cousins flew out to see him, and he was getting worse. I wanted to go, but I couldn't due to money, and it was killing me because him and I were extremely close. He ends up passing away a couple weeks later, and when my grandma called, she said he kept asking for me and my mom before he passed, and that crushed me. I wanted to say my finally goodbyes. I loved that man so much. Then one night I had an extremely vivid dream that I was at the beautiful ranch in Mexico, and I walked through the gates and saw this long house with many cars outside. I went in and opened the door, and I was greeted by my aunt. I have her a hug, and turned to look who was all there, and sitting right in the corner was my grandpa smiling. He stood up, and I ran to him and gave him the biggest hug. I woke up right after and cried tears of joy, sadness. It felt so real.